through the CDC, vital statistics. The other class of overdose is if it is a substance that is manufactured, that is out on the streets, and or taking one prescription drug way upon the therapeutic level or not prescribed to that person, then that's when it appears in the accidental category. I just wanted to kind of let you know the number of overdoses isn't representative of all of the intoxications. So that's per the CDC, and that's how they like to see that. So accidents by type, you'll see that overdoses is the second highest category of accidental deaths, first being motor vehicles. Now we broke down the motor vehicle types on page 9. Suicides have really stayed in line in this county consistently with what the normal levels are. We did see a couple of our counties experience a really big spike since COVID. And so we really try to monitor that and just report that to the Department of Health and Human Services so that they have the stats moving forward. In this county, well, every death is a tragedy while taken by suicide. It's not necessarily beyond the level that we would hope, and that's why the numbers are reported like that. The homicide deaths, 0 for this county, first time in 3 years. So that was absolutely a blessing there. And then cases by age group, we just want to make sure that the age group of those deaths is really, again, falling in line with what the averages of each category should be. Page 13, the gift of life and our organ and tissue donations. For each of the donated cases, it can affect over 75 people's lives that are on a waiting list. And so we're very thankful that each of our investigators helps us comply with the law in the state of Michigan, the Kyle Horning law, which mandates each county medical examiner to make those donations from the scene. So that is very timely. We need to make sure that that is completed within 8 hours, and that means contacting next of kin and everything that goes along with that. So Montcalm County has successfully donated over 5 in that fiscal year 2022. And I'm a recipient of one of those as of last year. I shared that with a couple of you. So my knee has a donor plug in it. So after 30 years, didn't expect that to happen after doing this job for 30 years, but I'm very thankful. I've been administrating this for a long time, helping others receive, and so I have now been a beneficiary. Page 14 is those sudden unexpected infant deaths autopsy reimbursement. There is a fund through the state of Michigan that most medical examiners don't take advantage of because the packet of information that goes along with it is quite lengthy. But we have a dedicated person in our office that has done that job. And so that has come back to the county for reimbursement because we filed that successfully. And that really wraps up my 2022 stats in this county, but I would absolutely love to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Lisa?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Phil.
Lisa, you had mentioned that accidental deaths have gone up.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Which categories have
So,
increased unexpectedly?
right. So most of that is the drug overdoses. The drug overdoses, when you add just, I believe between that fiscal, we actually experienced, 5 of those in that accidental. And then, like I said, the natural overdoses then add to that. So,
If I'm reading your chart right on page 8, it looks like 11
let me see
accidental
that one.
overdoses.
Yes, for the fiscal year. Page 8. Yes.
What would you have expected them to be a year ago?
Yeah, right. So the year prior, I believe we were down to only like 7, 6 or 7. I could pull those exact stats. We have a gal now in our office, and she's been with us 12 months to working with the state on the exact everything to do with the drug overdoses. And so as she's getting trained through the state, we're going to be getting more detailed information on exactly what the types of drug of abuse in this county are. I mean, that's reported. She reports it to the state. That's part of, she's a 0.5 FTE in our office just to deal with drugs, and that's quite a bit. I mean, so
The 4 doesn't seem like a large increase, but
when you're coming from
50% seems like a large increase.
Exactly. And these are the cases that fall through the medical examiner system that does not represent those that were revived. Okay, so these are deaths.
The almost deaths.
Right. These are just the unexpected deaths that happen in the field. So this is, an increase of, like you said, 50% or so. We definitely need to pay attention. And that is the biggest category, in this county. Some other counties have, suicide is their biggest category, and one of them even has homicide as their biggest category of increase. So, but it's something to watch. And that's why we report these things to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, just to make sure that they have what they need.
I had one other question. Okay. You had mentioned you have some new testing now done out of Kalamazoo.
Yes.
Since October, I guess.
Yes.
Have you learned anything that you didn't know before from having that new testing?
Yes. So what we do is we get back the specific drugs to pass along. Some of those cases result in us realizing that there are other children that need to be removed from the home sooner than later. So if we do not find those rapidly, immediately, our on-scene test only tests for 11 drugs of abuse. If it falls within that range of 12 through 66, we've had to go back and tell Department of Health or Social Services. We report to them, and then they go ahead and they protect others in the home that need to be protected. So we have learned the different specific types sooner. So that test is, it's more for rapid detection to prevent further damage to either inside that home or a community. So another reason that test is good is because there are normal users in a society. Okay, so you have somebody that uses on a normal basis, they have a supplier. That supplier might have gotten hold of something that is tainted with either an increased amount of fentanyl, for example, or something that they don't really realize. So they are a normal user from a normal supplier, but if there's a bad batch coming through, then they need to know that their supply has been compromised. And so the sooner that we are able to notify people that this is happening, then they can sort of watch for that. I know that sounds like a really crazy concept, but it actually happens.
Hold off on buying the heroin.
Yeah, I mean,
no good this
or
month.
at least question your supplier if we have a bad batch of something coming through. So I don't know how else to say it. It's
recommendations.
It really, I need some law enforcement help here. We only report cause and manner, and hopefully as quickly as possible, so that law enforcement and other users can know. So,
thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I'd love to answer.
I think everybody understood.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Oh, that's okay.
Next is correspondence. Vice Chairman Peterson with tonight's correspondence,
Did
please.
did we do public comments yet? We did?
Yes, we did.
Okay, just making sure. Must have been out to lunch. Okay, correspondence for today. If you look at your packets, you'll see number 1 for your consideration, Commission on Aging Vehicle Accessibility Plan. Director Dreyer is here. If anyone would like to ask him questions about that. Ryan, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I mean, it's a pretty standard plan. MDOT requires every transportation agency to create one of these in 2005 with the idea that they would update it periodically. They haven't asked any transportation agency under this program to update it until this year. So it's basically just the same sort of policy, just with some new language added in there. We're in compliance with all of these. It's been approved by our Transportation Advisory Council already, so I'm just looking to have it adopted as policy at the county level here.
Does anybody have any questions for Ryan on any of this? If not, I would move to adopt the Commission on Aging Vehicle Accessibility Plan.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next up, page 16 starts your staffing summary update. I believe this is to do with animal control and probably Board of Commissioners and tidying up everything we've added or subtracted.
Not entirely.
What?
Commissioners was like that.
Okay.
So we added an animal control officer and the one full-time kennel attendant since October. We also added a deputy clerk 2 in district court, if you remember, and Jennifer Nestor. And then on the last page in Veterans Services, Officer 1 got added after the budget was approved. So those are the 4 changes.
What's the total FTE?
Well, I don't know.
I didn't pay
I
attention.
didn't add them all
Must
up.
have been 3.5.
Oh, just for those additions?
Yeah, 3.5 or
Oh, yeah,
something.
yeah.
Thank you.
I thought you meant the
No.
total.
Does anybody have any questions for Brenda on the staffing summary? If not, I will approve the updated 2023 staffing summary as presented.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next up is the SUDAC Advisory Council appointment. They have recommended to appoint our former colleague Kathy Bresnahan to serve for a 3-year term with the appointment to expire December 31st, 2025. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
I thought that name looked familiar.
Yeah. If not, I would move to accept the council's recommendation to appoint Kathy Bresnahan to serve a 3-year term with the appointment to expire December 31st, 2025.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next up is the warrant report. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about anything in the warrant report? If not, I would move to approve and allow for signatures warrant number 01232023 in the amount of $655,123.13.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the consent agenda items are up next. Items 5 through 10. Does anybody have anything on those? If not, I would move to place consent agenda items 5 through 10 on file.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And other than that, 11 through 13 are for your information and resolutions from other counties. So if nobody has anything on that, that will be your board correspondence from Monday, January 23rd.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Peterson.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is committee reports. We don't have anything. After that, we're at new business. Number 1, clerk
I don't
correspondence.
have any.
Number 2, controller correspondence.
I'm good.
Number 3, chair correspondence, and I don't have anything. Number 4 is register deeds. Commissioner Johnston.
Yeah, I was wondering about maybe having a public hearing next month. I'd like to hear the pros and cons of combining registered deeds with the clerk's office. It goes on like 36 counties. I don't know if it's good or bad. I'd just like to hear the pros and cons from both sides of this and see what happens there.
Why the public hearing?
Well, just, I don't know, so both people can comment. I mean, both sides, the registered deeds can bring their side and
We can,
clerk in and.
we can invite anyone here to give testimony or participate without having a public hearing.
Okay.
But
I mean,
certainly we can have a public hearing
I mean,
too.
that's fine. We could just
However you,
discuss it.
however you prefer, whatever you want to do.
I guess it really doesn't matter which way we do it. I'd just like to hear the discussion from both sides and see, if it'd be cheaper for us to have one
You
person or
expect,
two, or
you expect a lot or some people in the public that would want to weigh in on that issue? Is that,
maybe, but I don't know, not really. I just basically like to hear from both offices.
I see. Well, like I said, I think either way is doable. So really whatever you prefer.
Let's just invite them here and discuss it.
You wanna make a motion to that effect.
Yeah, I would move to invite the registered deeds office and the clerk's office to discuss the possibility of combining offices. Support.
It's been moved and supported to invite representatives of both the registered deeds office and the county clerk's office to our next meeting, February 12th. No, 13th.
13th, I think, is a Monday.
To discuss the pros and cons or possibility of combining the registered deed and the clerk's office for the 2024 election cycle. Discussion. Commissioner Cohn.
Is there a catalyst for this thought?
Pardon me?
Is there a catalyst that got you thinking about this?
Well, I'm just thinking the cost to having two elected positions versus one. And just, I just don't know. It works in a lot of areas. I'd just like to hear the pros and cons and see what we think.
No, I'm not disputing whether we should or shouldn't do it. I just wondered what was kind of what got you going on the idea.
Just looking at and seeing that there's other counties that do it that way. And
What counties?
I don't have them all listed, but there's 36. Doesn't matter. I just want to hear the pros and cons of it.
I was just curious.
So don't we hear from the clerk quite a bit now that she's just overworked? I mean, aren't you busier than all get out?
Maybe 3 months.
Pretty busy.
Yeah,
I think it's worth discussing.
I'm sure of it.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I just want to hear the discussion. I want to hear the pros and cons of it. I'm like I say, I'm not necessarily in support of it or against it. I just want to hear the pros and cons and see how it looks.
So basically what we're gonna do is have the register of deeds office come up and say why they don't want to be combined, and we're gonna have the clerk tell us why they want to be combined. Is that what we're getting ourselves
That's probably
into?
what it's going to be. And then we have to make a decision if we want to do it or not. If it weighs out like a good decision or a bad decision. I don't know. I'd just like to hear it. I'd like to hear the discussion.
It seems like an interesting idea. I don't see the harm in hearing what people have to say about it.
How do you want that to appear on the agenda? Is it an agenda thing?
I think just under new business as an item. that
Just
it'll
put it
be-
under
or I
Thunderdome.
guess maybe old business at this point, that it'll be
Okay.
a discussion about combining those offices. And we know that we'll invite representatives from both and they'll have a
Forum to
appropriate
speak.
time to
Okay.
speak to the issue.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Or to shorten it, Thunderdome.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. That ends new business. Old business, item 1 is the Juneteenth holiday. Brenda?
All right. Mr. Jordan with Iona County did get back with me. He said he has not heard any talk of it by his board yet. But if you've seen what's in the paper, they've kind of been at odds over his job. And I got through the grapevine from the county clerk down there that they thought they were just going to wait until it got close to that time and address it then.
Commissioner Cohn had kind of a valid point at our last meeting. He suggested the possibility of, I believe, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I think he was advocating for the units that have other non-federal holidays already granted, that we could possibly swap if they were interested in that. I guess I don't know how that relates to the fairness of, so the courts, let's just try to play it out here. So the courts are going to get it anyway, right?
Mhm.
And then everyone else is really who we're wrestling with, giving it or not giving it.
Right.
If-
We'd have to open contracts to.
So in that group of people, if we wanted to offer that as a holiday in lieu of one they currently have, it would have to be bargained.
For those units.
So that isn't really a viable solution for this Juneteenth.
I think we will be up against opposition on a swap.
And we probably would be hard pressed to address that with every union in time, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can make that happen.
I don't know, at the last meeting, I had commented that I believe that probably for the most part, our employees are overworked and underpaid as far as a general rule. So the fact that we have to have some harmony with what Ionia County does on this matter, that maybe it would be in our best interest to be the leader in this and say that if we're forced into granting it to the courts by the state, they put us in a box to start with, but to be consistent and make it fair with everyone else, we just grant it as a holiday. I don't know if that's necessarily prudent or not, but if we were to take that position and for some reason Ionia County came along and said they weren't going to do that, the idea of the consistency between the two counties would be out the window.
Yeah.
If we were to grant that, is it more likely that Ionia County comes along and follows suit, or there's really no guarantee of any harmony there?
I think they gave it to everyone last year, so I was a little bit surprised that they didn't already have a plan in place, but they have a new administrator, so.
Does it make sense for us to grant it to everyone else contingent on Ionia County? So, for example, we're going to give it to the courts by the state mandating it, and then we would go ahead and grant that a holiday to everyone else if Ionia County follows suit. If not, we do what we did last year. The courts get it. Everyone else is mad because they didn't get it. Is that really what our two options are, or is there more than that?
I think that's basically your two options.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Baker?
there is another option that some people don't care for, but if there was a number of PTO days available, people could take whatever vacation they wanted to, and the operation would still be working and serving our constituents. So in the light of some people really wanting that day, and most of them not caring about which day it is, but they just want a day off, that would serve not only the constituents, but it would also serve the purpose of having that day off if they really wanted it.
Which is what we did last year. If they wanted to be off, we told them they had to use a day of time.
Yeah, I agree with your point. Would you, would you concede that if Ionia County were to grant it, that it would be important for us to go ahead and grant it for the Harmony, or would you still prefer to stay with the, if you're feeling that strong about it, use the PTO day? And
Well, I like the idea of PTO days, but I also like consistency. So take your pick, I guess.
I don't want to sidetrack your thought there, but what's the linkage with Ionia County?
Circuit
the
court.
circuit courts.
We share a circuit court.
Right? That's just the courts we're talking about.
Mhm,
When they're going to get the day off anyway.
mhm.
So we are going to be consistent with Ionia County's court system, no matter what.
Well, last year they gave everybody the day off.
But why,
So
why,
that's
why do
what
we
I
care
mean.
about that? What they did for everybody else? Maybe I'm missing something.
I would say both. I don't understand it. I mean, if the courts get the day anyways, what do we care what Ionia County Sheriff's Office does?
It's
Or
spilled over into some shared, not shared staff, but some, I don't know, I guess I can't put my finger on that right now. Maybe I was wrong all along.
I don't know. It was just, I just felt it would have been nice if stayed consistent with what Ionia is doing, just for the sake of the court employees that come back and forth. I don't believe all of the employees travel now with the judges, do they? Sue and Aaron?
We don't really have a total plan, but we're not consistent with Ionia County anyway. They work 7.5-hour days. We work 8 up here. I mean, we're only talking very small number of employees
Yeah,
Right.
for the circuit court.
yeah.
And they're going
I
to get the day off in Ionia County for court,
Mhm,
Montcalm County Court, day off.
mhm,
So we're talking about everybody else,
yeah.
right?
I think a bigger issue was the court complex, that district court's closed. I don't know, friend of the court was closed?
Yes.
Friend of the court was closed. So prosecutor was open, indigent defense in my office. So I think that was kind of an issue last year, but I mean, it doesn't matter to us whether the courts are open or not. The building was still open.
And I was just trying to be proactive and get out of the calendar now as to what we're doing.
Right, right.
Is there any controversy about which office is closed? I remember at the time last year, we weren't sure whether it included, like, for example, the friend of the court or the prosecutor's office. And then in the end, is that clear cut? Do we know?
Now we
Mhm.
know.
We do
Mhm.
know.
Chairman,
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of simply following suit with what Ionia does.
Okay.
I think we should make a decision for our
Okay.
people.
Very good.
With that being said, I don't have a real strong opinion on either way. I think that my opinion is that each bargaining unit can bargain it as they see fit. However, if the majority of the board sees that, Juneteenth is something we need to do I can be convinced to do that as well. So I don't have a strong opinion other than I don't want to just follow Ionia's suit. I'd like to make our own decision.
Yeah, that's valid. Thank you. Any other?
So where have we progressed in this discussion from where we were the last time we discussed? it?
We're right there. We just need to, somebody throw a motion out there and see which way it goes.
I think if we said, hey, why don't we let the employees tell us if they want it or not, they're all going to say they want it.
Mhm,
I mean, it's a no brainer. I
mhm.
just don't. I mean, you say that might be. I think they're compensated fairly, and if they do have a strong passion for this holiday, I think they could take the day off themselves. I don't know. So I would make a motion that we do not grant the Juneteenth holiday to staff.
Sport.
It's been moved and supported to not grant the Juneteenth holiday as a holiday to the rest of the employees outside of the court's discussion.
With the understanding, to extend Ron's point, that if they wanted to take the PTO day
Yeah, they know
to
that.
celebrate that, they'd be more than,
They know that.
They could take a
They could-
PTO day to celebrate
Celebrate.
National Squirrel Day if they wanted to.
that's right.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
I'm taking that day.
You are?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2 is central dispatch. So we've got a resolution in front of us. Amy has spoken with us in the past about the need for a vote, ballot language to increase the surcharge at dispatch from the current $2.85 to $3. So you have a resolution in front of us. That is 2023-01. Did we get confirmation on the year? Is it 5 or 6? 5 years, so that's correct. So there's a change in the top, the resolution. The second whereas lists it as the voters have supported $3. That's supposed to be $2.85. That's what it currently is. And then the ballot language is down below in bold where Montcalm County Central Dispatch proposition for 911 system charge. And all of that language is in fact correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice
What-
Chairman Peter.
if the voters decide that they're not in favor of this system charge?
Find alternative funding. They mean charging other agencies, it'll mean getting rid of services that we're doing, cutting down on staff until we can go in front of the voters and get something approved. So that it'll cut our service drastically.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get
So
too,
that's the plan that I'm formulating right now. If we have to, but that's what this is for. It's for our daily operations.
And do you have any plans of going out and I guess for lack of a better term, selling this to the public? Do you have advertisements?
I won't do that until it was approved here.
Right.
So that I had a plan and I can tell them a date that they're going. So yes, I do have a plan to do that and have been talking about our surcharge as well. So
I just think that
down to 42 cents, which is what the state approved without a board resolution. So we'll have a little bit coming in, but it'll drastically cut our budget. And yes, I am planning to put a lot of time into it.
I just think that if the public were informed and could make an informed decision, I think they would see that it's definitely necessary. But
and by us taking action here tonight, this allows you to put it on the ballot in May. Is that correct? What's your pleasure,
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairman Peterson?
I move to adopt resolution 2023-01 and place the Montcalm County Central Dispatch proposition for a 911 system charge on the ballot for May 2nd, 2023.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Up next is number 3, the blight ordinance. Vice Chairman Peterson.
Okay, I attended a meeting of local township supervisors last week on the 18th. Unfortunately, only 7 of them were there. They, I feel like they were under the impression that we were trying to supersede what they have as townships. And I know personally that was never my intention. I wanted to make it so this process is streamlined, get it so each township has at least very similar blight ordinances so that it's easier for our sheriff to enforce, our prosecutors, judges, all that. The sheriff was in attendance. He has said that he's enforcing our ordinance the way that it is now. I know talking with Brenda that spoke with our legal counsel, they had said that that might not be that our countywide ordinance may need to be looked at again to determine validity. I guess when meeting with them, my entire goal was to see if that was something that the townships wanted to work towards, is get an ordinance on the books that everybody can look at, everybody can use and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction we're going. And now every township, every municipality has, the same ordinance. I don't think the cities will go along with it, but the supervisors were definitely on board. They would be more than willing to help out. They would be more than willing to work to find a solution to this problem, because I think we all know it's getting to be an issue. It was brought up in the meeting, and I don't know how we got sidetracked, but some of the supervisors were looking to have us put a countywide trash millage on the ballot. I don't know if that's something we want to look into. That's definitely up to the board. I would think that areas like Stanton, Howard City, Greenville, Carson City that already have trash pickup would not go for something like that. And the mechanics of it, we'd have to figure out, what the dollar amount would be before we could even put it on the ballot. So I told them I'd bring it to you guys. I don't know if that is something we want to explore. It's definitely something you guys can chew on. But yeah, so the supervisors, at least the 7 that were there out of the 20, were seemingly on board to try and move forward in figuring out what the countywide blight ordinance would look like, or at least a hybrid of all of the blight ordinances. So I told them that I would bring this back to you guys, and we would have to go to the lawyer, I guess, and have an actual conversation and figure out what we can do and go from there. I don't know, I guess.
So just to circle back and refresh my memory if no one else's, but you brought up the topic of enhanced countywide enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff indicated that he was currently enforcing it, and that was suitable. In the meantime, the controller pointed out from a conversation with our legal counsel that probably enforcing the county blight ordinance isn't legal or isn't the best method at a minimum.
We can't have a blight ordinance because we're not zoned. It's
So,
supposed to happen at the township level.
so the mechanism he recommended, and this is odd because at one point it was some lawyer that drew this up and said we could do it, but you can ask 10 lawyers the same question and get 10 answers, I'm convinced. But so his solution was to have every township adopt a blight ordinance. And then along with that was, it'd be nice if every township adopted the same ordinance so that the county sheriff could be the enforcing agency and not have to figure out 20 different ordinances.
Mhm.
So the fact that the supervisors meeting only had 7 of the 20 supervisors there, we're probably a ways away from them initiating a ordinance that takes care of this.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I guess the purpose for meeting with them was to see if there was interest in doing it. There's no need to sit and spin my tires for a couple of months trying to do all this legwork and then them say, well, we don't want to have anything to do with it.
So you brought it up originally several months ago, to do some enhanced enforcement. So at this time, are you in favor of the county developing that said ordinance and putting it in front of the 20 townships to see if they want to adopt it as their own and make some forward progress on this? Or what's your?
I would love to say, yeah, it's that easy, let's do it. But I think you're going to have a lot of input from a lot of these townships, because obviously not every township's the same. yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it would be, you know, input from all the townships, municipalities, whatever, and develop this ordinance that one, our legal would say is enforceable and doable, two, that everybody agrees with, and three is carrying enough weight to actually get something done, start getting things cleaned up, I guess. I mean, I don't think this is going to be, you know, we're going to be adopting this ordinance next month. But I think if the board is of the accord that this is something we want to move forward with, I think there's legwork to be done, and we could get somewhere with it. But that's just my opinion. There's 6 more of you, so.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Johnston.
I would be more in favor, like Adam, to having a county-wide ordinance of some type that would be legal and enforceable over everybody having their own ordinances, because then their attorney has to prosecute the cases if it's a local ordinance. Whereas now our sheriff can do them all. If it's just a local ordinance, a township adoption ordinance, their own attorney has to be the prosecutor in that case, I
Right.
believe. What's that?
Right.
And I mean, that would be,
He's saying if they all adopt their own township has to do it.
Right. And that, well, they would sign an agreement with the sheriff to enforce.
to enforce.
But then that allows the sheriff, what he doesn't have now is access to their legal. Because he doesn't like to enforce a township ordinance, because once he does all the legwork and hands it over to the township, then they don't want to spend the bucks to go to their attorney so it falls through the cracks.
Right.
So the only way we would be able to make it work is if they all adopted the same ordinance and then they all signed an agreement with the sheriff to enforce it.
But it's an individual, it's a
Okay.
township, or there's not
There won't-
I don't know what you're referring to. There's not a mechanism to have a countywide one because we don't have county zoning. So we can't, we've got a county blight ordinance that the attorney says isn't enforceable because the county doesn't do zoning. So
we have a
Like you
sheriff.
said years ago, attorney wrote that up and said it was legal. So,
Well,
I
it's,
mean,
if you look up the MCL that it's based on, it's junkyards along highways. So that attorney way back when took a lot of liberty in stating every residence was a junkyard and every road was a highway, apparently. So
okay.
in the county.
So in this meeting, the sheriff made it very clear that he is enforcing the ordinance as it's written right now.
and that was news to him that we didn't have an enforceable. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there's kind of 2 prongs here. One, we probably need to have a conversation about what our sheriff's department is going to enforce in the short term in light of what the attorney tells us, because apparently he didn't know about that until you told him.
That's what he said.
That's true.
And then secondly, how we move the chain forward on trying to come to some longer term resolution to the problem.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
after the initial discussion a couple months ago, I did a little bit of background on this, and there's some concern that there's even case law in Michigan that the County Board of Commissioners doesn't have the authority to enact an ordinance like that it goes to the township. So we're gonna have to get legal on it before we do anything like that without having individual. Now, granted, they could have all the same one and sign on as a group,
Well,
but
I think that's where we're trying to,
That's the
that's where
definite
I'm
concern.
trying to steer this to. I think if legal says that we can't have an enforceable ordinance, that's great, fine, whatever, we'll rescind ours. But I would like to see us driving towards the ultimate goal of one unified ordinance across the board, work with Mike and his staff, the township supervisors, our legal, and make it so we're all on the same page. Mike and his officers don't have to flip through, pages of ordinance to say, oh, well, we can only enforce the noise ordinance from 11 in this township and not 10. So we have to wait an hour. I just think if we can streamline it and unify it, it'll make everybody's job a lot easier. And I think it'll benefit the county as well.
So let me ask you this. So my my point a minute ago was the fact that only 7 of the 20 bothered to attend.
Well,
and
was it
trying
2
to-
on a Wednesday? I mean,
But still, when's the date that 20 out of the 20 are going to get there? And
Well, did they know you were coming to talk about that?
I don't know. I mean, the sheriff was there, so I assume there was some scuttlebutt of what was going on, but
so
I think
if-
it would be more, you know, if it got down to it, it would be more of our board reps going to the township meetings and saying, you know, this is what we're doing. And I mean, it's not like something we have to meet about in person. It can always be emails. I mean, there's always ways to get things done.
I just wonder if not every township has to adopt it. So if the county comes up with a template that's a doable ordinance that the sheriff agrees with, what he can enforce and he couldn't, and we put it out there for any township that wants the assistance from the county or the sheriff's department, here's the boilerplate ordinance, adopt it as your own in Cato Township, and then the sheriff's department can come to the rescue. And then if anyone else wants to sit on their hands, it's beyond what we can help them with. But if we wait until the time that 20 supervisors get in the room and hatch this ordinance, it isn't going to happen in 2023.
No, I don't disagree with you. And I think we're saying the same thing with different words.
I think we ought to investigate with our attorney the cost of developing that ordinance and bear the burden of that and say, here's this boilerplate ordinance. And the county is willing, by way of the sheriff's department, to help you township enforce an ordinance. Here is the ordinance. So in order to get the county's help enforcing it, you need to adopt this as your own. And in adopting that, I'm not suggesting that we just come up with that and ram it through. I'm saying, let's take the lead on getting that done. So if you can get 7 supervisors to participate, or 15 or 20, have at it. But the fact is, we're taking the lead on getting it in place.
Well, and that's where the meeting kind of ended with is I said I would bring it back to the board, and if you know the board had the want, then you know I would have all of them send their ordinances as they are right now, and we could run that through legal and make, you know, we could make, I'm sure there's not leaps and bounds differences of ordinance from township to township. There may be, but I think we could send all that through legal, and they could spit out on the other end, here's a very generic, very boilerplated combination of everything. And
I think we ought to have a very simple, straightforward ordinance to start with.
Oh, I
that any
agree.
one of us can read and understand in plain language, that people aren't just getting buried by legalese that they don't get, and have it address the real problems, the unlicensed vehicles, the piles of absolute rubbish, trash, maybe the wood or the piles of building materials unused, but really just a narrow scope to get started on the worst of the worst. And then if that's successful and we're making some headway, we can always go back and add some other things to it. But if we make it that thick that nobody can understand, it's just going to get shelved and nothing's going to happen on it.
no, I don't think we're driving you know, trying to make it just as big and as cumbersome as it can be. I just wanted to make sure there was interest at the board before we really, you know, started looking into this. There's no sense in paying lawyers to do things if they're, you know, if ultimately we're not going to do it. So, I mean, I have no problem going back to the supervisors and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking about. This is a course that we think could yield some results. Is that something you guys want to do? I don't think we can leave the sheriff out of this conversation either. So we need to make sure that he's at the table while we're
Absolutely.
drafting or whatever. So
Yeah, I didn't intentionally do that up to this point. I thought we would have a meeting with him kind of privately,
Mr.
just to
Chairman,
get everyone on the same
Commissioner
page.
Combs.
Brenda, is it if you talk to legal enough to know if it's even possible to get a boilerplate ordinance.
I did share with legal the one that Sheboygan County sent to me, which I think was only 2 or 3 pages. And he had positive things to say about it and said it would work. I do have one from Gratiot County as well. It's not very long, 2 or 3 pages.
Because if I were a township supervisor, I'd be thinking, what can I or can I not have in my ordinance? So that's a slightly different step than saying, you know, here's a boilerplate that you can adopt. Maybe they might be needing something more than that. Here's some things you can't have in there. But maybe they do now that they really shouldn't. I don't know. I haven't read any of the township blight ordinance.
Well, the townships run their ordinances through legal, and I mean,
So did we.
to Commissioner Carr's point, it's one of those things. But I think if we can get Mike on board, if we can get the lawyers to sign off on a very large umbrella ordinance that can be enforced, and all these townships would like to join in, I think they would be all about that if they could, you know, start using the county resources that they pay for to get blight cleaned up. But like I said, I feel like, you know, don't shoot the messenger. I'm trying to go in between and get a solution to this. So whatever you guys want to do.
I would be in favor of having our county administrator contact legal to find out what it would cost to get a standardized blight ordinance. But I don't want to say yes or no without having a price tag on it. I never ask for legal advice unless I know what I'm going to have to pay for it.
I agree with you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
A good point, Adam, you made it before when we were talking about this, was the fact that there's people like thumbing their nose at the tickets they're getting. They're not cleaning up. You had talked about, you know, higher penalties and things like that. I think now's the time to take that into account if we're going to do it too. So,
Yeah, and I know when talking with Mike at the supervisors meeting, he was saying that the judge has kind of stepped up his game and is taking these cases more serious. So now you can't, because one of my things I hear a lot is people just pay the fine and don't clean up, you know, and then they get fined again. They just pay it. It's easier than renting a dumpster or whatever. So I know that the judge has now stepped up his enforcement to the point to where they aren't just allowed to pay their fines. They're required, 30-day cleanup, must provide proof. That led down a whole other conversation with, how's he able to do that? And the answer I got back was, well, he's the judge. So it is what it is. But I think there'd be a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people that have to sign off on it. The prosecutor, the judge, Mike, it would be a lot, but I think it could be done.
Couldn't the teeth be built into the ordinance? Isn't it true that right now it's just a civil infraction? That's how they get by paying it and no recourse. So couldn't that idea be baked into the ordinance itself, making it a misdemeanor?
like after so many
First
steps,
offense or whatever, and so on, so on.
not a lawyer, but I don't think it's not, out there to do something like that. There's got to be somebody in Michigan that already has something like that.
I'd like to see something in the ordinance where the township hires someone to come in and clean it, and then it goes on their tax bill. I mean, ultimately, then it's cleaned up, and they're going to flip the bill for it.
Boy, that'd be are you going to be
I've
the
seen
one
it
that goes in and
happen,
clean? I'm sure, but boy, I just feel like that would be a very tense situation.
I mean, it's a worst case scenario situation, but
Right. Well, and I think that's, as far as the enforcement and the legal teeth conversation, I think that's something that we can have, down the road with these townships. I don't think anybody's opposed to, something like that, but in the case that there is, we'd have to weigh it all out.
I do believe there's widespread support across the supervisors. I know at least the supervisors that I represent, their townships. I thought that I might have some pushback from Eureka. They're highly zoned. They've got great ordinances. You know, how they would feel about having the same ordinance as maybe Bushnell, who has no zoning.
Right.
And she was 100% on board. They just want consistency and they want some help with enforcement.
Yeah, she was at the meeting and she was very vocal in supporting it. I think everybody was, but yeah, it just is what it is at this point. I think we have resources that we can help the constituents, and we should use them.
Would you, Vice Chair, speak a little more about what a trash millage would look like?
Well, so it caught me off guard. So I was trying to take notes as diligently as I could, which if you've ever seen me type, you know that doesn't work well. But their proposal was to put it on the ballot and figure out one company that would collect trash in the entire county. Mark Christensen was there. He said it would save, wear and tear on the roads. I do see validity to it, although, they were talking a full mill, you're talking $2 million. I just don't, it kind of stalled out with, we don't know what it would cost. So it would have to be, we'd go out and get bids, figure out how much a millage or how much of a mill we'd have to levy to get this done. And then the voters would obviously have to put it through. I mean, outside of that, there wasn't really any specifics being talked about. It was just, this would be a good idea. Maybe people will throw more of their stuff away if we have a countywide trash millage. I don't know. But again, I don't think you'd have the majority voting areas, every city around that already has a, trash pickup. I don't think you'd see them voting into it, but I've been proven wrong before. Did that answer your question? I really,
I just wasn't sure what that looked like.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure
that's-
if they were just trying to
that was
to help with cleanup, or if they were actually talking about what you're talking about now.
yeah, it was just everybody gets a bin and they come around and pick it up once a week.
Okay.
So that was the blight ordinance conversation. I guess, do we want to direct our controller to talk to legal and see what we can do or how much it would cost to start getting something like this in motion, or
I think we should.
is anybody opposed to it? Do we need a motion for it?
Probably, just for sake of remembering what we did.
I move to direct the controller to contact the county's legal and start figuring out how much it would cost to draft a blight ordinance.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to direct the controller to get with the county legal counsel and ask for some pricing on the cost of an ordinance that we could adopt countywide as individual township ordinances. Discussion. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4 under old businesses are meeting times. Vice Chairman Peterson.
Boy, you guys are gonna get tired of me by the end of this. So all of you,
Not gonna take that long.
no, Phil, quit flirting with me. So, we all received an email about the meeting times, from a gal named Stephanie, I believe. I think she was here. Yeah, Stephanie was here. I didn't see her walk in here.
She's here tonight.
So she, we received this email. She politely requests that we reconsider our meeting time for our board meetings. I know when this came up in the organizational meeting, I had said, you know, maybe we do one at 4 and one at 6. I know that wasn't that wasn't greeted with the warmest reception, but I just feel like you know, Chairman Carr and I have spoken a little bit about this. I feel like in the climate that we're in right now, to where everybody is justly asking for political transparency, I really feel like we need to take another look at this and maybe think about putting the second meeting of the month at 6 o'clock. I know that's not great for the staff, but if we kept the one at 4 in the beginning of the month, then the staff could be here, you know, without having to drive home and come back and everything else. I understand that the staff, it'll put a hindrance on them for the second meeting of the month. Adversely, I know that it's a topic that goes around that people would like to be able to come to these meetings, and obviously it doesn't work with their work schedules. Is there any discussion that needs to take place about this? I mean,
I have some discussion.
Go ahead.
We had an organizational meeting in January, and if we set it for the year. As far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the discussion.
Who was down here?
Yeah, I did. I was just wondering if 6 o'clock, we think that's a good time, or if 7 o'clock would be better, or I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
I think, you know, either one would be fine. But you know, it's up to the board. I know that we've tried it before, and one of the former commissioners made a big push for it, and it didn't yield a lot of results. But again, I think that we've moved into a different political climate where constituents are very, I would almost say, hyper aware of what is going on, and they would like to be involved. So I would like to afford them every opportunity to be involved. I, again, understand the drain that it would put on the employees and whatnot, but again, I'm just bringing it up to see if there's any change in their thoughts.
I think I've received a lot of the same communication that you have, and was basically told to, and basically responded with much of what we talked about. That this has been tried before. It didn't help with attendance. We have our meetings at a time, you know, for a reason. I also understand their point, and everything you've said, Vice Chair, is right. You've got a lot of people that are hyper aware of the political landscape right now and want to be more involved. I could be convinced to split our meeting times between 4 and 7. I think the second Monday of the month, I've got at least one township meeting and a school board meeting. The second meeting, 7 o'clock meeting, if there's support, I could back that.
Yeah, I think we all have township meetings the first couple Mondays of the month, so it would definitely be the second. And like I say, it would be easier for the staff to get to the first Monday of the month, and then if we had to, you know, if they had to come back, then that would be okay too. I know security has been brought up, and I'm not aware of what exactly the sheriff said, but he didn't sound like he had too much interest in providing security for us. So if we were so inclined, I'm sure that Stanton PD would provide an officer for, you know, a couple hours. Obviously, we would probably have to compensate them, or we could look at a private security firm, or, you know, something of that nature. I know that's been a huge concern, that people will just saunter in and out of the buildings at night, but I just don't see why somebody would want to break into such a boring place. But
On a personal note, I'd much prefer the 4 o'clock meetings, but
Yeah.
for the benefit of the public, I understand that perspective.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, my concern was similar to a couple of things that have been voiced here. There's a lot of township meetings. My district covers essentially 3 townships. One of those 3 has their meeting on a Monday at 7 o'clock. So if we met at, I guess, the second Monday, just like our meeting, it would conflict with that. So, and you probably don't remember this, Ron, but I wanted to have 6 o'clock meetings 4 years ago. And you were talking about maybe having them at 8:30 in the morning or something, if I recall. No, it wasn't 8:30.
No, it's 9.
It was 9.
Yeah.
Or if not 9, then 1.
There you go.
So I could go with a 4 and a 7, or a 4 and a 6, I mean. 4 and a 7 too, I suppose. I don't get home at 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So I could see splitting them, but I wouldn't want to have 2 meetings at 6
No.
because it's going to
No, and I don't
conflict with
think
the other meetings we're supposed to go to.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what we're trying to accomplish, but at least one, I know before we did our meetings at 6 and, it didn't bode well, but I think if we can
change with the times.
yeah, we can try it. If it doesn't work, we'll have another organizational meeting in a year, or we could change it. I mean, I think for the benefit of the constituents, I would think that would be a good way to move.
I spoke to Vice Chairman Peterson about this prior to the meeting, and I know Commissioner Baker and I have probably lived through 5 of these meeting change ideas that haven't really ever produced any fruit. But I believe that, as some of the things have been mentioned here, we are in a different time. We're in a different political climate. People want transparency out of the government. We've been asked at least twice by this individual to consider it. I think we've got an option with the fact that we voted to have 2 full meetings a month. So the points that Adam made about the staff concerns and the things that county employees need to bring before us could get scheduled for the first meeting of the month at 4, and the second one, maybe some of those other things that non-county employees would be interested in attending. And I think, at least for me personally, it's easy to get in the habit of saying, no, I've done this before, it didn't work. No, but I think that we ought to consider, and we've been asked at least twice in public comment at the end of the year, I think our new motto or our operating MO for the year is we should ask, how can we accomplish whatever ask we get? The first question ought to be, how can we accomplish that? And at least have some dialogue about what it is that is being asked of us, and properly vet that and see if it can be accomplished, and not be closed-minded to first reaction of, well, it's too expensive, or we've been down that road and we just can't do that. I mean, we could put it back on the asker, I guess, in a lot of cases. Somebody comes to us, a department head or an employee, wanting an idea in the county that maybe has been thought to be too expensive in the past, and we approach it with a different attitude about why not, or how can we. Maybe we put it back on that person to help facilitate the way that we fund it or something else, but at least have that open dialogue about what the possibilities are. So I think my vote would be in favor of this in light of everything else that we've got going. I think we've got an opportunity here to do this at 1 meeting a month. And like Commissioner Cohn said, if we get the organizational meeting next year, if it goes for the year and it isn't productive and it's an inconvenience and it makes more sense to change back, we can change back.
Well said, Chairman. I couldn't agree more.
Mr. Chairman, I move to change our meeting times to 6 o'clock for the second meeting of the month and 4 o'clock for the first meeting of the month.
I missed the time, Adam. What time?
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
I think that's what I said. Is everybody good with 6?
Support.
Perfect.
It's been moved and supported to move the second Board of Commissioners meeting of the month that happens on the 4th Monday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, with the first meeting of the month on the second Monday remaining at 4 PM. Discussion. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, last one, I promise. Animal control, I've sent, I believe I sent you guys an email. After last meeting, I was instructed to talk to Autumn Pumford about coming back to be our animal control director with the stipulations that we set forth to her. She did agree. She has she put her 2 weeks notice in with her former job 2 weeks ago. So she's waiting for us to approve the hire. And if no one has any objections to that, I would move to hire Autumn Pumford as our animal control director effective immediately.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to hire Adam Pumford.
Not Adam, Autumn.
Autumn.
I mean, I don't work too much, but I don't want to do anything like that.
I said Autumn, it was just my voice.
Oh, is that what it was?
As the animal control director effective immediately. Discussion. So on all those points that we gave you the liberty to offer that job to her, are we clear on what those are as far as her starting?
It was the same pay scale as the veterans director. 3-month severance, vehicle to drive home while on call. What else was there? I think those were the big.
I don't know that I'm a question. I just wonder if from the controller's office, are you guys set up to put her to work tomorrow? And you know all
Oh,
the
I thought she was gonna be here today, to be honest with you.
stipulations.
I'd have to go back to the board minutes and look
Was it-
what I wrote down.
Was it Commission on Aging Director?
No, it was. I think it was veterans.
Okay,
Year one
okay.
was 60,100
Yeah, it
or
was-
something like that.
Yeah. that's-
28.
Any other discussion? Do we have so this is a new position, a director, animal control, does that, do we
The
have
staffing summary shows that it's.
we have
It's
that
in the
in the
budget.
staffing
Yeah.
summary
It
already?
was in the budget, it just wasn't budgeted
So
for
we've
that
got
money.
a job description.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
All right,
Opposed? Motion carried.
I'm all done. Thanks, guys.
That ends old business, public comments.
All this public and no comments?
Well, it's got to be one or the other. We really did bad or we really did good.
Right, right,
They're all dumbfounded.
right. Speechless.
Speechless.
I would, if there's no public comments, I would move to adjourn.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.